What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Barrett UniVersus Super Show, a radio call-in show where you can be the special guest live over on the channel. If you have questions and you're live over on YouTube or Twitch, all you got to do is over on Twitch type an ! Ask a question. But basically, it is I have a ticket system inside of my Discord called Ask Tam a Question. Open up a ticket. Write down your question, come be on the show, and me, you, and Barrett are going to talk about your question for about 15-20 minutes. Would love to have you. Love to have you. Going to be super cool. So, with that, the opening question that we have, is, Barrett, it's your week to come up with a question.
Oh, sorry. The opening question is, Cameron, you had the pleasure of not only doing well in, but attending the Stark Dark 1K.
2.5K.
And I heard
1K
2.5K
for retro.
And I heard that it was a phenomenal time. How was your weekend?
My weekend was good. My weekend was really, really good. The night before ended up deciding I misclicked my flight. So we'll start the story there. I misclicked my flight and I flew out.
Hence why you didn't get an episode last week, by the way, chat.
I flew out Thursday at 5 a.m. and then landed like noon and then like spent the whole day there Thursday. Chilled out Friday. Saturday was the event. And I had to leave Sunday instead of showing up on Friday. Leaving Monday. I just shifted my day back by one because of a misclick on my end. So,
but that means you still got to play in the main event, Tam. What does that mean?
I did get to play in the main event. So, it was a six round tournament. I think we had
33 players.
33 players. It was fun. It was good. Had a ton of heat there. I had 3 Rochester kids there. Jesse, Kevin, Tim all showed up. Jesse, I think, got like 17th or got 9th or something. Like he was the bubble boy, I believe.
Winning in for sure, right?
Yeah, on Nick Reagan. Apparently in his like 114 card Nick Reagan deck, he checked back-to-back 2s to lose the game. Which just like,
damn.
Ouch. Ouch. Only 4 2s in the deck. He checked them back to back on the same turn, but rough. Yeah, ton of great players like Chris Bromley and Jose were there. We had me. We had a ton of final round people there. Like it was dope. We had Carson Panos from Let's Talk UVS was there. Just truly a room of killers. I ended up taking Air Pony and.
As you should have.
As I should have, and not to inflate your ego a little bit, I decided that for this event I would try something that I thought was not going to work out. I was experimenting, and I took out Lethal Slash from my deck.
Oh my goodness, he did it, chat.
So, Barrett Bryan, I officially, handshake, would like to give you 7% of this win. 7% of a 4th place finish is yours, buddy.
Whatever, man.
Ended up
you just don't need it, right? Like that's my only main stuff. You don't need it, and I didn't feel that I miss it.
I did not feel like I missed it at all. And actually, because it accidentally gets hit too hard by things that counter other things in the meta. Dark Ward messes that card up. I don't have any other real like responses in the card pool. It's that and Airy Smiles, right? Like I've got 2 things you have to worry about. So I would much rather you like save it or whatever. We can have a whole diatribe. So I just got to have
your Vast Hybrid Chimera factions can touch other things
100%
because you don't have to worry about Dark Ward.
Correct. Yeah, it felt good. I made some other weird changes or weird trying outs, like mainboarding a singular copy of Attack Titan's anti-Titan artillery, excuse me, +1 damage on every move, and then a Kraken that sits on board that can also touch assets. Felt very good. It never got to be on board. My thought was that it would be decent versus Peak because that one card beats Peak's defensive enhance. She destroys a foundation, then I give it a damage and then plus an extra one. The issue is that It's very good versus peaks that aren't running Lunar Ring, and if you're not running Lunar Ring and peak, I think that you're messing up. So it was like I didn't go one level further to go. How do they stop me? And the answer was they just like their kill condition beats my pretty okay tech piece. But besides that, I think my list was like maybe like 98% perfect, genuinely. Like I took that card out and put another card in. Like I took out that and put like a second copy of Tattered Costume, and then I think my deck is like really really solid. Like exactly where I want it.
Yeah, and like you got to test a lot more with play a lot more with like the post AOT 3 pony, and like I think there is it's weird I'm going to say this. There's even more expression with that character post AOT 3, because like I do think what I was trying to do with like Hunter's Ally and building in some ally cards on the air symbol is like fine pre AOT 3, but now like there's a real reason to build in Kiyomi or whatever. And then I think there's even like weird extra sideboard cards you can put into the deck because of it. Like I think the Hizuru Alliance card is a really fun sideboard piece. Or like a main deck one copy of to get around cards like Airy Smiles or other things people are playing to deter you to doing a chain attacks.
Sure.
So like there's some pretty expressive stuff I think to do in the deck. I'm glad you did well with it. Also, there was another one, right? So
Yeah. It was a teammate. It was me and Josh Moore. Big shout outs. He's in chat right now. The night before, we decided he was still wobbling on the deck, and then I think we sat down and our list was like 8 cards different by the end of it. Like he opted for not the fourth Kraken, but ended up playing an Armor of the Wolf. He was running things like Nice Tries. I convinced him to put in like there's some things in, some things out, but like I think I got fourth, he got sixth or something like that. Like it like fourth, maybe fifth. Like we were both right up top. The only 2 ponies in the room, 100% conversion rate, felt great. But if you want a deeper dive into the event itself with a ton of data, actually, Friends and Rivals, not yesterday, but I believe the day before, did a full breakdown of the entire event of like, here's how many cards that every deck was playing and so on and so forth. We ended up not playing out top cuts because somebody misclicked on their flight and everybody was very chill to just split all of top 8 and so everybody got $300, but there was an extra $100 that was unaccounted for because of how the pot worked. And so we all got in a circle and we gave Chad a D8 and he rolled a D8, and whatever placement you got, that's the person who got the extra $100. Tim Keefe walked away with an extra 100. So not the Brave technically won this event because he got paid 400 and the rest of us got paid 300. We all tied for second place.
Timmy, 2-time winner strikes again.
Yeah. But all in all, I think that the event is a good snapshot of what we could possibly see for the for it's not St. Louis, it's Louisville. Yes. So
the other Louis.
St. Louis, Louisville, Jacksonville, they all get shuffled up in my head and I shake it and I'm not sure which one's going to come out. I have no
St.
idea.
Jackson, Louisville.
Yeah. But the event was very fun. I played I readapted my boss battle again. I made it a little bit tougher because of some feedback. Played it as a side event on the Friday previously, and it was a blast. It was super super fun. I would love if in Louisville we get a chance, Barrett, if we have a spare AOT 3 box sitting down. I'd love to sit down and play this boss battle with you. I think you're gonna have a blast with it. I think it's in a really really good spot. That it is very very
I might just
hard.
have one. But
you might just have one. Bring it to
know.
Louisville, and it would be awesome. But yeah, do you have any questions about the event? And I can answer them rather than me just like waxing.
No. I mean, I was a spectator, of course. I went back and 2-time speed. You who was streaming for the one day that we had, which was nice. I heard fun stuff about retro that happened on the day that you weren't there for. No, I heard it was fun. I know Christopher Bromley had a lot of positive things to say about it. Which is nice because like he said that it felt like what PTCs were to you and I before MHA.
Yeah.
And like there's something very homey about that. but it doesn't show like the growth that I would love for the game to have. Like I would have loved if 64 people showed up to the event and it sold out, and it would have been incredible, and everybody would be talking about it instead of just a couple of people show up. And don't get me wrong, high caliber, like your world champion was there, so like you can't ask for much more, right? When it comes to the caliber of players that were there. But it's one of those things to where if side events like that got almost as much traction as like our regionals do, I would feel very happy and content about it. But the reality is people can only travel to certain events. It's pretty close proximity to Louisville or Louisville. Louisville obviously sold out, so people are putting a lot of priority on Louisville. We're also coming up on convention season. Origins was last weekend, so you were fighting with Origins, and people in our community love Origins because it has so much history to our game. You have what's the other one that's happening? The other big convention that's happening, right?
Gen Con?
Gen Con, that's coming up. Obviously, it's a ways away still, but it's like I would love it for it to be bigger. Obviously, it's okay, and you guys had a good time, and there was a real prize at stake. I hope they continue to do it.
Next one's already been announced. It's in
Yes.
November. I believe I don't remember where. I didn't get the full details, like DM'd to me yet. But I'm planning on being there. 99.9% chance that I'm there. With St. Louis at Impact Gaming. Perfect. It's gonna be dope. It's gonna be super super awesome. I cannot.
And that's cool because that's pretty close to me. I might even go. I'm allowed to play in those.
You totally should.
So
There
if you weren't
is a
sick of
world.
CM Pony already,
be prepared. Yeah, I am quite excited for it. It definitely had that PTC feel, and everybody is. I think me and you are in the exact same boat when it comes to that as a compliment, because it is, right? The PTC runs were very, very grassroots. They were very, very. I knew everybody in the room. I got to go up and shake their hand. We all got to go to Denny's afterwards, and we continued the event after the event got done, which is not something you could say about like regionals, right? But that is a small game feeling with with us wanting to be a big game, right?
Yeah.
And so like there is this world where, man, if we had a 64 person PTC, we'd be over the moon. That's almost our like worlds and nationals level events back in the day.
And we used to, right? Like Rockford and Omaha and even like Las Vegas, if enough people went out to them, Rockfords would get big enough. Atlanta PTC, like these ones have had big enough participants before, and that blew us away, right? Because we're like, man, I couldn't even name 64 people to play our game, and like that's not the reality anymore. Because, like, I mean, genuinely, I could walk up to 100 different people at like a nationals and I would know who they are. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that is the growth. That's the growth. But the point is that when you look at an event like the Stark Dark one, not that many people did go out to it that I wanted to. But when you hear that compliment, it is a compliment. Like, because that same feeling on when Chris Bromley said that about the event, I think of if you've ever been to a regional or if you haven't and you're on the fence about it, the Friday night in the hotel lobby of the event is that same feeling without any stakes.
Correct. 100%.
And it's just about you being able to walk up to anybody, and even if you don't know them, you meet them and you get to talk about UniVersus for 3 hours.
It's dope.
Or, well, let's not talk about it. Let's just play. And I'm going to play you with my fun deck. And then you like, oh, are you playing this tomorrow? And you're like, no, I'm playing this tomorrow. You want to play against it? Yeah, man, I'll play you with my region. And you sit there and you play UniVersus for 5 hours.
Yep.
And you're like, man, I can't wait to play UniVersus tomorrow. And like that same feeling, which does exist for even larger games, that the night before in the hotel lobbies nearby, that still happens. We have that now too. But before, when you talk about the PTCs, you're right. It was that's before the event, during the event, and after the event, and that kind of grassroots feeling.
Yeah. But this, ladies and gentlemen, is the Tam and Barrett UniVersus Super Show, where we don't just sit here and wax poetic about things that we want to talk about. We want to sit here and talk about the things that you want to talk about. If you want to be on the show, all you got to do is ! Ask Tam a question. All that's going to tell you is if you go over to my Discord and you go click on the correct sequence of buttons, you will have access to the Ask Tam a Question ticket. Click create a ticket. If you ask a question inside that channel, I will delete it instantly. I will we will get you on the show. You and Barrett will all talk about it, just like my good friend, my new best friend Barlow, who did not know that he was going to be on the show quite this quick, I'm sure. What up, Barlow? How's it going, man? Oh, have you so quiet? Will you talk again for me?
Oh, he's so loud for me.
Hello.
The duality of
Hello.
man.
I had him turned down for the
How's it
webcam
going?
event. It is
That makes
good. I'm gonna put it to where you are on screen. You had a question. Hit me with your question.
Yeah, so this question is for both of you.
Good.
While I've got two players who have both topped events here and done pretty well historically, this is a question I wanted to kind of present because I'd heard it a lot in the community, both recently and in the past. So I've heard a lot from players who are kind of doing pretty well at events. Maybe they've gone to 2 or 3 regionals. They've gone like 4 and 3. They've done pretty decently, but they haven't quite hit that top cut. Maybe they're losing a win and in. They feel like their events are going pretty well, but they're not quite breaking that barrier, breaking that plateau, and elevating themselves to like that top level. And I guess my question to you guys is, what would your advice be going into the biggest regional, presumably, of the season for those players who are really looking to kind of break into that top cut for the first time?
I love this question. I know Tam could talk about this for hours, so I'll go first.
Please.
We're going to refer to this as the hump. This is the hump that I think most people talk about when you hit that decision of, I'm not just a casual player. I like this game. I'm going to spend the money. I'm going to go to a regional, and you go, and you don't really care how well you do, but you get so close, and you make that decision. You're like, I think I do want to try and aim a little bit higher. And I'm doing consistently well at these regionals that I go to, but I'm not, like top 32. Yeah, I get some more points, but it doesn't get me into that. I don't get to sit at the table with everybody else. It's not that same caliber. It's the hump. And I have one easy answer, and I only know this from results. I know this how this worked for me. Obviously, Barlow, you're no foreigner to this idea because you have top cutted multiple times. I'm the biggest Barlow guest fan out there. You can ask him yourself. The reality is, it didn't change for me personally, and even my friends in my circle of like players, until you sit down and you actually dedicate time to practice this game. It is a muscle, it is a skill, it is a sport. We are trying to take this to the competitive level. I mean, Tam has martial arts background, I've got some sports background. I'm a former like singer, like I would sing. I would even relate this to like commentary. Like, if you don't practice, you're not good, and you don't feel good. And so, and I guess that was a blanket statement. You are good. There is also known as like natural talent. But the idea is, if you feel like you're just not quite there, the reality is, the more hours you put into it, the more you flex the muscle, the more you're exposed to in different ways of playing and thinking and things like that. Because as you put in those hours to grind the game and try different things and test against different decks, or test your own deck that's different and changing, you learn and unlock how you are as a player and what it takes for you personally to succeed, because every player is not the same player. And I do think half of this game is not playing the mechanics of the game, at least at the competitive level. It is playing the player. And that is what makes this game expressive and skillful. And also, that's where the luck factor comes in. We know that we play a card game. We're not going to ignore the fact that luck doesn't have a bias in any sort of game. But this game has so many choices, not just at the skill expression, but in how you choose to enact on that skill expression as you personally as the player and the deck builder, and uh, the 3 terms that Tam's used with me, which is pilot, innovator, and
Honer.
honer. And all 3 of those types of players, I should say, can have success. But you won't know how you are going to find success for yourself personally until you put in the hours. And my only one story to this before I pass it to Tam is, literally before I won my first nationals, Tam and I and our friend Jacob Johnson would sit in my card store that I worked at. We would film content for YouTube, and then we would be up, I'm not joking, 6 a.m. some nights. We would be up until 6 a.m. playing UniVersus. And that was when that next event that we grinded for, Tamron top cutted, Jacob Johnson top cutted, and I won the whole damn thing. If you put in the work, it shows rewards. And I would say that about anything in life, not just about UniVersus. But that is what I think it takes to get over the hump. And the reality is, not everyone has the same resources like I did. Me and my two friends jamming games in a card store basement. But the reality is that our game is big enough, and there are resources for people to play online with each other, and you can get that similar feel without even having a locals, and you can show up, and you can be a menace at this game. And that's all it takes. It's just time and practice.
This is just the ultimate question, isn't it? Right? Like,
How do you
Jake,
win,
thank you
Cam?
for
How do you
the
win?
prime. The snarky answer is exclamation point coaching in chat. If you go on Patreon, I will spend an
Sell out.
hour and a half every week with you. We could talk about it. But to mimic everything that Barrett has said, I do agree with you. I'm gonna hone in on a couple of small points there. Practice doesn't make perfect. Perfect practice makes perfect. Just jamming a bunch of games is helpful for you understanding your fundamental, but if the games aren't good, then you're just spinning your wheels in the mud rather than actually making any real progress, right? A million Tamisms. You can't coast uphill. Perfect practice makes perfect. All of these things, pita loops, they all culminate in this idea of when me and you, Barrett, were sitting in that event grinding Scorpion versus Cassie Cage. That's what I was on. That's what you were on. When Jacob was playing Liu Kang, which we knew that was going to be the menace. Like it was not about. It was not about how do I make my game plan so good. It is what am I doing into the field and what could possibly be there. And the climate was a little bit different, but it really was actively thinking, truly actively thinking, how do I make it better? I was talking to somebody earlier today about the percentage points of playing the game, and I'll ask both of you. You're both top cut players. The best, most consistent player in the world, every single game that they've ever played, that takes into account every game from their first demo to literally they finished a game as my sentence is finishing. What do you think is the highest percentage win rate of the most consistent player in the entire world? Barrett, there's not a correct answer. Just give me a number.
I think based off of like what I believe in and what I've seen, because even for me, the best percentage rate is still probably only like 75%.
Barlow, same question. Buddy.
That's the best.
I think I'm even going to go a little lower. I'm going to go like the 65 to 70 range at the absolute top.
Okay. 65 to 70. I think that's fair. I'll go even lower, and I'll say we'll say 60. 60 so that I have room to grow. Where does that 60 come from? It comes from playing the game really well. That 60 comes from having a good deck. That 60 comes from having good luck. Your goal to top cut is to take and push these percentage points a little by little by little in these different tiers of I need to make sure that I'm not missing any percent when I'm playing, having my P loops be correct, making sure that whenever the mental load is too high, there is I am making the correct decisions and not just affect this turn, but affect not the micro game, but the macro game. I also need to make sure that I have slight percentage points. David just had an incredibly divisive video go out talking about feel good cards versus real good cards, and I think that his message there has some merit. I think the way that he said it was kind of bad. It was kind of not good. Not using his terminology at all, but the cards that you put in your deck push up these percentage points just a little bit, right? Me including Web of Blades in my pony list this weekend equated to 0.7% of my wins over the course of the weekend. Over the whole grand course of the whole weekend. Because that card, when it touched the board versus this very specific character, which I had prepared for, I got way more value out of it. It is these small little decisions that you get to take and make and see you physically taking these small steps forward that will help equate you into making a top cut. When you take and you look at the player who last season was the most decorated player, Travis Tangeman, that guy's deck constantly had incredible deck building choices over and over and over again. His deck was well constructed and he knew how to pilot it and he knew what to do in certain situations versus everybody else. When I say our game is a combination of chess and poker, I think that's something that we as UniVersus players don't put in our head enough, is that our game has so much pattern recognition that is just untalked about, and I don't know how to articulate it. How many times have you been in a position where I have my first turn, my build was bad, I have my 3 foundations, I've got a 5 diff attack that's really impactful, and a 4 diff attack that's okay impactful, and then foundations. I need to play a poke in order to start generating some advantage. Do I play the 5 diff? Do I play the 4 diff? The answer is, you play the 4 diff, because you've, in that pattern recognition so many times, you've checked a 3 on this move, committed 2 foundations, and died because of it. If I play the 4 diff, I check a 3, I commit 1 foundation, and I can survive because of it. That is, in the most simple form, pattern recognition. Small percentage points, moving and coaxing up. And so, like, there is not some, rub a lamp, get better, here's how you make it into top cuts. It really, truly is, how do I eke out small percentage points to get closer from Tam's 60 to Barlow's 65 to Barrett's 70-75? And it doesn't have to be all at once. You can move in different categories of the 3 things. So I want to be a better pilot, a better innovator, a better honer. They all can move up, and they don't have to move all up at the same time.
And you ready? That dial on the percentage of how you are and how you feel as a player, percentage points wise, changes every day you pick up the game.
Yeah.
You can learn something, and no matter what you do in life, every day. You should learn something every day. So then I'm going to turn the question to you, Barlow, because you're in the same conversation of you top cut a lot. It's your own question. What do you do personally to keep having the success?
I steal a lot of WUB decks, Barrett. No.
You've figured out the innovation part.
Well, I know, like, initially, as I was getting into competitive, the way I did it is I found a character that I felt overlapped in the I love to play this character, and I think this character is competitive category. I found someone I love to play that I felt was competitive, and then I just played them all the time. I played that one character, it was Amajiki, and I just played Amajiki all the time. I got really, really familiar with Amajiki. Huge shout out to Will Howard when I was new, jamming so many games with me in just the main server. Really taught me the game and like helped me get a lot better. So huge shout out to that guy. And yeah, that was kind of just how I did it. Is I just played a lot of the character I loved that I felt like could compete in the metagame.
Yeah, and I mean the reason I pointed at you is because spoiler alert, again, big Barlow guest fan. I see this guy in Discords and all the different Discords I share with Barlow, always playing this game. Not always, I get it. You're always having fun and stuff like that. But you play this game, and over the past years of you getting into it, have been playing this game a lot.
Yeah.
And every single time, and you're playing against other high caliber players. And I'm not saying like that's the recipe, like, hey, you need to have friends that are also good at the game. That isn't the recipe. I think you can learn a lot from players that are even, I'll use the word, weaker than you, because seeing someone make a decision and figuring out why they made that decision path and how it directly does conflict with something that you would make, there is a learning experience there, not just for them, but also for you. Because sometimes, even as competitive players, we sometimes get lost in the sauce. Oh, I've been playing, last time I won, I did this thing, and this was how big my deck was, and this was the percentage of attacks I put in my deck. I'm not going to, that's the recipe. That's how you win. And the reality is that's just not true. Our format's always changing. The players you're playing against are always changing. Your day-to-day luck on playing the game is changing. How your mood is and how you're feeling influences how risky or not risky you're going to be playing. It doesn't matter who you're playing against. Any feedback is good feedback. Asterisks. And I have seen you play this game a lot. Is just kind of what I'm getting at. And so like you don't just like the game and you don't play the game and you do well. You put your money where your mouth is because of how much you've played the game. And I think what you said in your starting point, finding a character that you really like that is adjacent to being competitive, I think there's a lot of those in our game right now. And so for anybody at home that's listening or watching, and your favorite character is not the Brave from Critical Role because Critical Role got you in there. Well, Tim Keefe just showed up at a $2,500 tournament and top cutted with it and won a die roll. So he walked home with the most money out of anybody. You can do it even with a character that doesn't have as many top cuts as the rest of them do, right? But if you really like Not the Brave, you can do it.
And something in this I'd like to point to is our regional winner from the first 2 regionals this year in North America, Andrew Porat. That guy not only plays a lot, but he also is one of the most dedicated deck honers I've seen. He picks a character and he plays it for a format. He shows up with that character week after week and makes the deck 1% better, a little at a time. Until not only is it a really refined deck, he can play it with his eyes closed.
Correct.
He can just slam those cards on the table. He doesn't need to think too long. He can use his mental energy in other ways during a tournament because he's just so intimately familiar with the cards in his deck.
I think that is such a good way to put it, Barlow, because I would be able to sit here and say the same things. When I won with Cassie Cage and when I won with Tokoyami, I could play that deck with my eyes closed.
I mean, it goes back to that pattern recognition, right? Like the way that you get that pattern recognition is there's only so many combinations of cards you can have in your hand and the order that you would want to play your cards, right? I have 3 attacks. I've got 4 foundations. Obviously, I'm going to play my attacks first and then my foundations. Or obviously, this is not a turn that I'm going to go in. I'm just play my 4 foundations. Like it is so easy. Like the mental load joke is so easy to do. It's so easy to make, but you just compartmentalize what mental load you have to care about. But in order for you to compartmentalize it, you have to know what it is, right? You have to understand that the cards on my board, these are aggressive foundations, these are defensive foundations, these are flow foundations, these are disruptive foundations. I can separate them. They're like I get these crazy shower thoughts, right? I'm a crazy person when it comes to this and teaching the game. I thought about
period.
I'm a crazy person. Period. Thank you for the sub. I thought about making a new player playmat that actually took and in your stage separated it out in 4 zones of aggro, defense, flow, disruption, so that you could take, and when I build my foundations down, I look at my foundations and go, this one gives plus speed. I'm going to put it in my aggro foundation zone. So on my turn, I look at half of my board, and then on their turn, I look at the other half of my board, and it just cuts down on mental load. Whoever's going to get that, I don't know. I think it's probably a bad idea, but it comes from a good point of like, how do I compartmentalize? And you can do this compartmentalizing you can do this compartmentalizing by yourself, right? I put on my face down foundations over here. I put my tenacious foundations not in the same pile as my other committed foundations to make sure. And like all of these things are I don't forget abilities now, right? Like I forgot there was one time where I forgot that I had a tenacious ability versus Jeremy Ray in top cuts of a nationals that Barrett Bryant won, and it stopped Jeremy from killing me. He had to kill me 3 turns later, and I felt so bad that I didn't even want to press my button. It was simply, if your name is Scorpion, spin a momentum, gain 2 health, and he had a lethal move. It was for Xaxes, and I could gain 2 health and survive. That was his last attack. And he's like, oh, I would have played the turn differently if I knew. But like, and so like there is that kind of idea will take and push you to be a better player, to just know all of your choices. What are all the buttons I can possibly do? Back to the Peter loop. Perceive, evaluate, decide, act. If I don't know what I have, then I can't decide or act upon that information. I just don't have the choice.
building upon the pattern detection and stuff like that, I not only just like your own deck, but you change the way that you play with those patterns depending on your matchup. The way that I'm trying to think of characters like right now instead. The way that you play against King Ghidorah is different than you approach the game versus Rodan, and it's different than how you approach the game versus Godzilla. And then a side note, someone said in chat, but that means your opponent knows too. I can tell you where I leveled up the most in this game because it was just the truth. The moment I admitted the fact that every time I sit down and play this game, my opponent is always better than me. Because the day that I had to go against Kevin Broberg for the first time in top 16 and beat him, anything is possible in this game. And I am not saying that because I'm a better player than Kevin Broberg. I'm not a better player than Kevin Broberg. But the way that our game works, everyone has to be practicing and performing perfectly at any moment, or anyone can take advantage of you in the game and strategically. The caliber of the player does not matter because that's how skillful and great our game is, like genuinely.
Barlow?
So the point being, who cares if your opponent knows that you have a tenacious foundation?
Yeah, what's up, Tam?
Thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think I definitely resonate a lot with what you're saying. And I will say, along with kind of the compartmentalization part you brought up, Tam, is just like once you get good at that compartmentalization where you can kind of just look at a stage and know what's what, it allows you to devote more of that mental energy to other things, other parts of the game, other interactions. Maybe now you're thinking about hand traps and that sort of thing. I remember one time I was playing against, again, Andrew Porat. And so he's so familiar with his deck and he's so familiar with everything that's going on. He knew I was playing Runaway and he just juggled combined firepower to the top of his discard every enhanced step. And that's just like not something like that's on anybody's radar almost at all. And that's just something he did the whole game like as like a reflex. He's like, okay, I know this doesn't count towards progressive. I know you're playing Runaway. This is going to be on top of my discard pile all the time. And that's like crazy, like that edge that he could give himself.
And when he kept doing that on stream at regionals, and I remember because Sam and I would bring it up, and we're like, this is such perfect play that we're talking about. Tam says it's not practice makes perfect, it's perfect practice. And then he brings it to the game and then shows it on screen so that commentators like Tam and I can talk about. When he did that and he showed it off on stream, I never once then, because this is me as the competitive player, every time I played with stuff that juggled like that, I always put combined firepower on top of my deck because of what Andrew Porat showed me. Because you're right, something I wouldn't think about normally otherwise. And I learned something from him because you should just always be doing that. Because there's no reason not to. And that's why he's the better player than me.
And I think that's something that's so cool is even as like a national winning player, even as experienced players, there's still so much to learn about our game. And I think that's part of what makes it great.
The blanket statement I like to use is our game is never solved. Never solved. And that's not just including when talking about like deck building and the meta, but it's never solved because there are so many geniuses that play our game that will not just take a deck that you know is meta and be phenomenal with it, but they'll be innovative with it. They'll do something with the deck that you've never seen before, even though the character might top cut 1 billion times, because they themselves took that deck that everybody is playing for and leveled it up and did something different with it because they're geniuses. Because we have so many amazing players.
Thank you for the raid 4 chatcast. Greatly appreciate it. Hope your podcast was real good, not feel good. I agree. I think there's something to be said about another way to level up your gameplay is just like VOD review and such. But there's a million factors, right? How do you want to get better at top cuts? Eat a good breakfast beforehand, right? Yeah. It's as Barrett said, it's a sport. Make sure your brain is healthy. Drink water.
Guess what, guys? Maybe you might do better at the tournament if you didn't stay up till 3 a.m. the night before playing a bunch of games.
No, but I don't know what deck I'm playing. No, but I don't know what deck I'm playing.
And if you got some sleep.
Yeah,
Stuff
I had
like
to
that.
spend 7 hours putting my deck list in on the UGN. So obviously, my time is allotted from 9 p.m. until 5 in the morning because I have to type in how many Jaegers am I allowed to play, Barrett? How many? How many?
Man,
Not according to UGN. If you put 5, it's a not legal deck.
this is a meme to end this question with, just so it's not just the Barlow guest show. There was a meme because if you know Nathan DeWalt, I love the kid. He's a great guy. He beats himself up a lot and he psychs himself out and he gets nervous and he gets anxious, right?
I love
And
it.
instead of taking his pills that make him a normal human being like the rest of us do, he worries. And so I remember we were driving to an event, and I think this is either a meme or I'm making this up, but all we did in the car ride over was play positive affirmations on the radio and on the speaker.
So
And,
funny.
I'm not saying it as a joke. Some people really benefit from that. And if I would ask everyone in chat right now, how many of you listen to positive affirmations before you go play in a UniVersus tournament? I bet you none of them would say I do. Maybe give it a try, Maybe it'll be the difference. Maybe that'll get you over the hump.
I listen to rap music. That's the same thing, right? It's the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Barlow, thank you, buddy. Final thoughts before we kick you out of here.
I guess just to kind of wrap this section up is I think regardless of how much you level up your game and how good you improve and stuff like that, you can always just have a bad day. You can get a little unlucky. You can check a little bad. So I think even if you've showed up to an event and you feel like this is my event, I have the deck, I have the practice, it's okay to get unlucky. It's okay not to top cut. It happens to literally everyone. It happens multiple events in a row and to everyone. So don't stress it.
I love the question. Thank you, Barlow. And I expect you to see you in Top Cuts.
Well, yeah,
he's going to be 03 drop angle.
He's gonna be in Top Cuts every Tuesday, starting on the 8th. As we're drafting.
Heck yeah, brother.
All right, thank you, gentlemen. Have a good one.
All right,
Thanks,
get out
Barlow.
of here. Up next, we've got Rebby, who has a similar question, but not quite the exact same question. In the same idea. Rebby, take it away.
Hi, can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, we are
Yes.
wonderful.
That is great. Okay, so as someone that kind of focuses around the new player experience and how to really enhance our game to create lower barrier to entry, my question is, what do you think is a consistent new player mistake when they pick up this game? Is there something or a certain timeline that new players should be following to truly understand the core mechanics of the game and excel?
Dang,
Barrett's thinking. Holy cow!
I'm digging, dude.
He's
I don't
digging.
I don't know. I mean, full disclosure. I think this question, it makes me think a lot about my job as well, right? Yeah. I think.
What's the next IP, Barrett? That's the question she really asked.
Actually, yes.
Well,
Okay.
I thought. Well, I thought the.
What's the
I thought
next
the Street Fighter
new
deck's already
player
announced.
question?
Oh. I mean, so I guess let's talk about with the resources that we have, and then let's talk about what we or I believe, or I don't know if Tam wants to jump in on it, of what's the next step after that. So the resources we have are the demo experience, which has been changed multiple times. We have the step after that, according to the company, which is the starter decks, which, if we've talked about the recent ones, including the Critical Role, there's an upcoming Ninja Turtles one, and AOT had 2 of them, right? Where mixed opinions, of course, because the characters were not at the same level as the other ones. And then the step after that, which is a challenger deck, but then you have different level of challenger decks, right? Because I would say that the Deku challenger deck is maybe not super beginner friendly versus picking up honestly any of the Critical Role ones, or even the Godzilla challenger deck. And then you have the step after that one, which is, hey, you got to make your own deck, a constructed deck. What we have, I
Right.
think the challenger decks are very good entry points. I think thematically they follow a, a gimmick, and following trends in card games is what people are familiar with. You know, I use the word archetype a lot because that's a Yu-Gi-Oh term to me. Or I know some people will say like blank tribal, where you like are trying to force a mechanic, right? So with a Toga 3, for example, she builds herself, right? Or she's like, I play weapon tribal. Ochako plays high attack tribal. When you like put those two decks against each other,
Right.
I think those are good starting points. I think, like, to get back to the question, they teach you the core mechanics of the game. They teach you ways to beat each other when you like put them against each other, and they do a okayish job at like teaching you the timings of the game because there's so many layers. I'm going to give you my personal recommendation on what you do to move one step past the challenger deck, because as of what we just said is, hey, you have to build your own deck. I think if you take a challenger deck that you really like and you try just putting in new stuff that you know already fits that typal, is the best way to start that. For example, my first event I ever played in was a Street Fighter booster release uh, draft events. I got into that pre-release, etc. Those came with a Chun-Li and Ryu starter package when they came with two decks, and they were meant to be played against each other. Well, I don't like Ryu or Chun-Li, and so I was like, I want to play Guile. Guile's cool. I want to play Guile. Well, Guile doesn't have a deck, but Guile says on his character card, "Hey, you need to play Charge and Slams," and he builds foundations. So in my head, I go, I need charge and slam attacks, and I need to build cool foundations. That was what I needed to do. And I think that is genuinely the first starting point for a lot of players, because as soon as the new player goes and pulls up UVS Ultra, which is a mess, I know it's not very new player friendly, or they go onto the deck builder and they go look for every charge and slam on these symbols, and they go look at cool foundations to build in, and they jam 60 cards together, it is a start. And when they take that deck that they built themselves and they play it against their locals or their other players online, and they start the conversation, hey, what do you think of this? I made it myself. Hopefully they're nice people. And the response typically should be, I see what you're trying to do here. Let's talk about it. And I think that's the beginning of the pathway. And I think that's just what I'm trying to get to, is I think that's the beginning of how we get to whatever kind of player that you want to be. Whether that ends up being competitive. You're like, dude, this is so close. You're ready? Like, I like punches and ranged attacks or whatever. You're like, wow, this is so close to the Mina 2 deck that's a terrorist right now in the competitive format. Let's give you Mina 2 and see how it works out. And you play Mina 2 and you're like, whoa, I have a competitive deck and I'm going to learn how to be a really good player. And that's your pathway to becoming a high tier competitive player. Or no, I'm good. I'm not gonna go to regionals. I just wanna be a better player. I want to be better at deck building. I want my deck to feel like it's cohesive, because that is sometimes hard to do in our game. And you collaborate with another person, or you collaborate. So you go back to the drawing board after taking feedback from the person you played against and yourself, because you learned stuff, and you focus in on that type thing again. And that's basically my biggest hint. And like way to say this is, there's a way to start the pathway on what kind of player that you want to be. I think when you start off, you should just go and find things that you'd like. And I think our game does a good
Mhm.
job of that because of how many IPs there are, how many different ways to play the game there are. I wouldn't have said this years and years ago, because like at least now when I look at the game and I like look at a character like Rodan from a challenger deck and I go, "Oh, this guy screams like defensive gameplay but then has a little bit of offense because he gives speed to things, right?" And then at the same
Right.
time, I go look at the Toga 3 deck, and you're like, wow, this deck's going to beat ass. And you're like, well, those are two different players in my mind. This player wants to play this way, the aggro player wants to play this way. Here's two different typals. You're off to the races. So I think there are enough resources in our game to find a starting point, typically a challenger deck, for a player to find something that they enjoy with the playstyle that they like. And then that's the beginning of the path. And I would say that's probably the best way to do it. Going back to Barlow's question earlier, that segues a little past what we're talking about that I'm not going to dive into, but the idea is that path and however far you want to take it is what you want to do. You don't have to do the thing that we just talked about with Barlow. You don't have to ever aim for that hump. You don't ever have to do that. Honestly, I don't think it's for everybody. I think being a competitive anything is not for everybody because it's stressful. It's got some mental health tax because people are like we are our own biggest critics. So like I just sometimes think it's not for everybody. And then on the other side, I'm going to use words from a friend of ours. Games are meant to be fun. You should find the way to play UniVersus the way that you want to play it because it's a card game and games are meant to be fun. So obviously the easiest question is out of all those paths and what I said, you should find something that's fun. And if you're not having fun, we need to find another path. And I'm going to say this for some people that I've taught this game to. Sometimes no matter how many different paths you try, it's not fun for them. And maybe the answer is that UniVersus isn't fun to them because it's not for everybody. But I don't think that's true for most people. I think the hardest part is getting in and getting off the floor. And I'm not saying that my answer is a good answer, but I think there is certain pathways to get off the floor.
I'm gonna take it a little less focused and a little more ambiguous. I think one of the biggest issues, the biggest mistake, a consistent mistake, I get to take the word new out. It does apply to new players, but I think it the bell curve wraps all the way around and applies to hyper competitive veteran players as well. And it is just the fact that the idea of winning or losing is just the end of the game. The thing that you should be focusing on are the decisions that you make inside of the game, right? The end of the game being a win or a loss matters significantly less than you playing correctly inside the game. If you play correctly, it should result in a win. If you play correctly and it results in a loss, and there are things that you can do and you can spot places where you played incorrectly that gave you that loss, I think that is one of the best ways to get better, right? At not winning and top cutting and whatever and getting that check mark, the W next to your name. It is more of having a full understanding and really fleshed out vision of how to play the game, right? Because the game is all about is all about the journey, right? It's trying to reach the top of the mountain rather than just like constantly winning all the time, right? Like we all have a shared goal of I want to be the person that wins the tournament, but there are 99% of players playing in any event are losers. They just are. The second place guy is by definition a loser. He lost. That's why he got second. And so focusing on the win or the loss can be really devastating. And so focus on what's happening inside of the game rather than the result at the end, if that makes sense. Because this is a game where your skill and your decisions will shine through a majority of the time. When we talked about the percentages that we play, that we had from the last question of like Barrett said, the best player in the whole wide world, the absolute number one most consistent player only wins 70% of the time. That means they lose 30% of the time. If that person who loses 30% of the time goes, shucks, I suck because of the L that happened at the end of the game and does not track anything that happened previously, they're never going to actually get better or have a fully flushed out understanding of what it is that we're doing. And it goes back to what Barrett said. We're playing a game. The game has to be fun in the middle part. The game's not fun at the end. The game's fun because of the decisions you made to get to the end.
One of my most favorite moments playing this game at a high level was a loss. And I will never forget it. And the person that I played against, I have so much respect for, because the reality is when I took a step back and I reassessed the game after it was over, like, I played out of my mind at what was essentially probably just an unwinnable matchup, and I was still so close.
Yeah.
And I lost, which resulted in not winning the whole tournament. But like, it was very impactful to me. And that is somebody who has won a couple of things. The losses mean just as much as the wins do, as long as you're okay with viewing them that way. And the point I'm trying to get, I'm glad you brought this up, because I didn't talk about assessing your play at all in what I was talking about. And I think what you're saying is correct. You know, like, you can play any deck. And our game is hard. And I think part of the reason I didn't talk about it is because genuinely everybody makes mistakes when you play. Everyone does. And being the better player on the day is who makes the least amount of mistakes. Just
and,
like
and
with
even
professional
like
sports.
we're taking it to like a really hyper competitive. I mean, we're both very competitive players.
Yeah.
All three of us in here, genuinely just playing the game to the best of your abilities and saying, "Hey, 2 games ago, and when I had a split decision of, do I commit this foundation to give my move +2 speed, or do I leave it ready to pass another attack card? And I choose option A versus option B when I get into that pattern recognition, and I choose the better outcome, because in any situation, either one of them could have been correct, but I chose the better outcome for this situation. That's a win. You won in that interaction. There are winning. There's the big W. I've been on a new big kick of Tam being crazy, of micro decisions and macro decisions for the entire game, right? Of me committing this for +2 speed might micro decision win me the game, or win me the turn, but on the macro it loses me the game because I have a committed foundation and I cannot defend myself, right? Like the butterfly effect of just actively enjoying and playing the game better. That's what you should focus on, not necessarily what does the scoreboard look like at the end of the tournament. Oh, I went 3-0, not dropping a game. Okay, but did you play amazing? Like, what was your play like? That's what matters. Did I go 0-3, but my play was really good? You should feel just as proud. Yeah, I had 6 incredibly tough, long games, and I think I played really well. And I see the spots where I messed up. I know that I can fix that for next time. I think that's important.
And I think it's even more accentuated in our game, because our game has crazy ripple effects because of how many cards we check and how many cards we play and how many cards we get to see. That micro decision that you made on turn 2 to attempt to block this move or hold on that 1 extra card is 1 extra card that you didn't play for turn 6 of the game.
Yeah.
When the cards that you're like, I need to draw 1 attack card to kill my opponent because I survived with incredible defense, and you go to draw and you drew all gray and you went, fuck. And you go to make a check for that first card and it was the orange card. And all of that, if you really want to go back into all the micro decisions, if you played everything else out perfectly and the only thing you changed was that, did I play a block here to check 1 more card? You would have drawn that move.
How many times have you reviewed a foundation when your rival does not attack you and you could have freely built that foundation and you missed your check by 1 on turn 6?
Our game has crazy ripples.
So
and
much.
I think that is such a high level, like, very introspective, like, way of assessing your gameplay, which is like really cool if that's the way that you learn and you're analytical. But like, bringing it back to, like, as you said, new player centric and things like that, I think doing stuff like that is a very quick way to, like, not enjoy your experience when trying to get into the game.
Yeah.
But if you are someone that is trying to become hyper competitive, that is one small thing that you have to consider in the giant pool of what our game is. Because I'm a big deck builder, and none of what we're talking about has anything to do with the precursors and the ripple effects that occur depending on if you chose to play 67 cards or 60 cards or 61 cards in your deck, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? And everything in our game, when you come down to how do I get better, at any step of the way comes down to every single pebble that you can drop in the pond.
So, Rebby, you asked the question. We gave you two incredibly 20-minute long-winded answers. Do you have any sand to add into the massive rocks that we've put in this container of what do you think is a consistent mistake that new players make?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think one of the biggest one of the biggest mistakes, I'm so sorry. One of the biggest mistakes new players make is they come into this game and they assume instantly they have to take a competitive stance on this game and really start grinding into the meta and understanding what is winning, what is top cutting, really getting into that that win-loss kind of mindset that you guys had mentioned. And I think as a new player, the biggest focus should be understanding your fundamentals. I think this game is extremely hard if you don't know the bare minimum of how this game works. If you don't understand how forms work, how responses work, how to play attacks, how to block, why building is important, and just those tactics, I think you can really struggle and you're never gonna truly make it to the next step to really enhance like how you play as a player. And this is one thing that has kind of been on my mind. I taught my dad how to play using the Critical Role starter decks recently, and I
How much
just
experience does your
watched
dad have
like
playing card games?
he has played regular card games like poker, blackjack,
Oh,
those very
52 card deck game. Yeah.
52 card deck games. He
Yeah.
has never touched a trading card game in his life. So it was really interesting to see the perspective it can take in UniVersus being your first card game and the overwhelming amount of choices. The it just can feel like so much and you don't know what you're doing. And it kind of made me think, I think people are so obsessed with playing the newest, hottest thing that they're not understanding the game. And I've like watched my locals struggle with understanding bare concepts after 3 months of starting the game. And I'm like, oh, I don't understand. But if they consistently switch characters and you're always playing the new hot thing, you're learning too many gameplay styles. You're just not learning the bare minimum, right?
I
I
think
think
yeah, stick
it's
with what you
really
like.
Yeah, I think it's really important to pick one thing, understand it, and then move on. You can play as many characters as you want, but I think you have to understand the bare basics of this game.
yeah, there is something about so me and Barrett have a mutual friend, Tyler Clark, who when he learned to play the game, he essentially learned to play the game on a character very similar to Grog, who was if you don't block, reduce the damage that you would take by whatever. And so he played very heavy damage reduction type decks, and because of that, and never really when he was learning to play the game, he didn't actually learn how to block successfully. And so when he eventually switched off of playing Grog, he was getting mollywopped because he just didn't understand when he was or wasn't supposed to block. He was blocking bad moves or not blocking the good moves, and it like even things like
Right.
that of like there's an example to like fight your point of maybe he should have in his
Yeah.
development switched off of something, but if you want to be you always should have a main focus of the thing that you're doing, right? He should play this Grog deck and become a master at Grog and have something in the pocket, right? Even if it's something a little less powerful or whatever, experiment, but have this thing that you're focusing on, your main identity. Like for right now, myself, the main deck that I'm focusing on is I'm playing Pony. Pony is the deck that I am actively trying to make, and I'm honing and making it. And I'm making sure that every time that I pick up a hand, I know exactly what I've got going on. But my fun side deck is Jester, which plays absolutely nothing like Pony. Absolutely nothing like Pony. And I need to make sure that both of these muscles are being flexed and pushed, and they play the game fundamentally the same. They're playing attacks and they're playing foundations and sometimes they're playing backups. And it is important to it's important for me to understand how all of these cards interact with each other at the core level of the game before moving on to a third thing, a Midoriya deck, a Grog, right? And so I can totally see that of somebody who is bouncing around a little too excitedly week to week to week, not fully flushing out an idea to be hindering themselves in their learning process.
100% agree.
If you are a new player and you're listening to this, or if you or anyone in chat is working with new players, I would be not afraid to have the conversation with your new players of like, what are you
I am
shaking your head
reading.
at?
I am reading Fidu's comment,
Oh,
which I will not be
my bad.
reading out loud.
You
That
need
is
to
a
have the
crazy
conversation
thing
with
to
your
say, dude.
players because to me, and I would say this also as like a teacher, you need to know when your players are using trigger phrases or trigger words. Of like my favorite one in UniVersus when I hear people say is, "Oh, I didn't know you could do that." And then we get to have a lesson. You know, like we get to sit down and talk about it because if we didn't understand that specific thing, you can then have a conversation about like a much broader aspect because everything in our game builds upon itself. Things can relate and interact with each other. And so like uh, if there's can be some new players that like get frustrated because like their deck isn't working or something like that, and then when you have and you spread everything out and you like talk about their decks or you talk about how they're playing or you talk about how they're doing things, you know, like I know Tam does all the time. When Tam plays with newer players, he'll like pause the game, like he'll just like actually pause the game and like have a conversation with them, which is like a good way to teach somebody. But I think even if they've been playing for months, like that's maybe not the best thing to do, but the idea is you play a turn and like you beat them or something and they go and you go, hey, why didn't you use this thing? Because I was banking on the fact that you were going to use this crazy defensive piece and it would have saved you. And you're like, and they're like, oh, I didn't know I could do that. And you go, oh, okay, well, let's talk about it. Because if you had done it and you can like rewind time and do stuff like that, like that's my favorite trigger phrase for this game because there's a lot in this game that could be the probing part of that because there's so much going on. But I agree with you at the fundamentals level, Revy, of like, I don't know the last time I asked the question, I didn't know you could, or I didn't know. I don't remember the last time I said I didn't know you could do that in UniVersus because when you have the fundamentals down, you don't have to do it anymore. You've done it. Like
Right.
you have the foundations. Not to use the word foundation in our game that uses foundations, but you have those building blocks.
Great.
And it is just about building up from there, right? You said Tyler Clark. Mark Tyner, your former Worlds and Nationals champion, has played 0 other card games before he got into UniVersus. And in roughly a year and a half's time, he won back-to-back majors for character cards. UniVersus was his first card game. UniVersus, he didn't play any other TCGs before then.
The guy's a grinder, though, for sure.
He was a
That
grind.
guy's
And
a
in the beginning of the
grinder.
game, because you can ask Sam, in the beginning when he got in, he was bad.
Yep.
Like not good bad. And he had incredible teachers that were like people that built upon the game and had a big part of the Omaha community. He did have good teachers. It just hadn't clicked yet. But when it clicked,
Oof.
he became a menace.
Oof. Ready. Final thoughts.
Final thoughts. I think for anyone listening that is truly a new player, I think really listen to what Barrett and Tam said, and that I think the really big stepping stones is starting with the demos, going to challenger decks, starter decks, and then finally, sorry, I'm still coughing really bad. Really get into deck building afterwards. I think the challenger and starter decks, while they might not be appealing to a veteran eye, I think they're really important and really a necessity to the game. And these aren't high impact decks, but man, they're going to teach me a strategy. They're going to teach me a gameplay style, and they have a point. And it's not me throwing 60 cards together and hoping it works with my fingers crossed. They were developed, they were worked.
As somebody who has to play challenger decks in their brick form a lot, I'll tell you another thing that's really good at building fundamentals is PvE experiences. They're very good at building fundamentals asterisks, but when you and your personal deck need to figure out how to press buttons, they're pretty good for that.
I'm sorry, you said PvE?
And the reason I said PvE,
Speaking of,
like boss battles?
yeah, like a boss battle.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Interesting.
That's what other people call them.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
No, you're totally
I'm
right.
just saying because like
And
I
you're saying
had
that's
so much
you're saying that's a
fun.
good thing for new players.
Yeah. I think it's fun.
Interesting.
And it's good for doing and using your fundamentals because you need to know how your deck works. And so like when the Critical Role Vox Machina thing came out and there was that boss battle or whatever, the Briarwoods, like I thought that was fun to sit down with not just older players like new veterans, but new players because they like Critical Role and they shoved a bunch of attacks at this little Briarwoods piece of cardboard. It was a good time, not just for me, but it was also fun.
I love that. Reddy, thank you so much for being on the show. It was wonderful. Incredible. Thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you. Bye.
Last question. Last question from fan of the show, Zachary Richards. Hit me with your question, my guy.
So, this is the promised topic. Why should we recommend boss battles to new players?
So funny. What an insane segue.
Boss battles are a fundamentally different game than normal quote unquote universes.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
so, why is that what we would recommend to a new player?
I
Well,
could
can
sit
we
here and
cheat
talk
and
for
use part of the
7 hours
last
about
answer?
this.
I know you could. Can I cheat and use part of what I just said to Rebby, which is like I think at its core, like the idea of you play an attack, resolve a form, send it at a thing. The boss attacks you at some point. You have the ability to block. I would persuade my new players to try and block just for the sake of fundamentals, right? Because I think the reality is that most boss battles are pretty easy. Why should we teach them this fundamentally different thing as a way to get into the game? And the idea is just simply for using fundamentals. There's a big asterisk there, and I even said it when Rebby was here. The asterisk is there's just not enough investment in the space, which then leads to things like cards within a set not even working in boss battles, period, which is a miss. That's a big miss for sure. But I think like it's just a starting point is the best way I can word it. And it's less pressure than when you play against I'm growing up in Rochester and I want to go and get into UniVersus and I walk into the store and I get introduced to the crew and they go, "Oh, yeah, this is your 4-time world champion, this is your 2-time world champion, this guy's made $125,000 playing this game," and you go, "Oh, I've never played this game a day in my life." And they say, "Well, the best way to learn is to play against us. Saddle up." That's really intimidating. But when you work as a
Both
cooperative,
things can be bad, right?
yeah, they can be. I think anything new is scary, right? I think that's the asterisk there. But I think the idea is like if in a cooperative experience, if I sit next to Kevin Broberg and I go, "Hey, you and me, we're gonna work together to defeat this thing," and they go, "Oh, okay," and you look at them and like if I'm Kevin in this scenario, and you look at them and you go, "And I'm gonna help you," and that's how we're gonna learn to play this game together. That's what a teacher would do. You're not gonna 1v1 the teacher in a battle of wits of calculus when I walk into calculus class for the first time in my life. No, you're going to work together and figure out how the person who knows the knowledge learned and got to the spot that they're at by working along with the teacher. And I think that's where they can be in a good space.
I think that my thing is you're also not going to teach someone pickleball if you're training them to play tennis. There's a lot of similar skills. Those games play kind of similar, but they're not the same game.
So this is where I get into I get deep. I think one of the biggest issues that we have in our card game is there is a singular way to play, and that is at regional hyper competitive levels.
Yeah,
that's it.
Yes.
There is one singular focus, and that is if you do not go to a regional, and we have a cultural zeitgeist of you are going to play every single round of the regional, because what the fuck else are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? Am I going to sit there and twiddle my thumbs? The side events don't happen until the regional's done. They just don't do it. There is no kitchen table way to play the game. There is no commander way to play the game. There is no pauper. There is no somebody saying triple threat. That's not a real format. There is not a supported format. We have no draft. We have no sealed. We don't have it. We have go spend $300 to $1,000 on a constructed deck and go play your 9 rounds, go lose, and then go home. That's all we have. Boss battles, if made correctly, are an entry point that it puts everybody not on the same plane, but if one person is actively stronger, if they brought that $800 deck and they're playing exclusively ultra rares, and they bought the Harley Quinn promo that's $40 or whatever online, and they spent the money on it, I am no longer getting outskilled because I haven't put the paycheck in. It is one of my big issues with Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood, you have to have this legendary or majestic equipment. If you don't have it, your percentage points of winning go down like 5%, which is insane. Insane to just like not have that. And so when it comes to boss battles, since it is a cooperative game, we all are allowed to push and move towards a common goal. And I feel good because I have the power on my side. With it is still the same fundamentals. And Zach, we didn't get a chance to play the boss battles. I think the boss battles that were made and designed by UniVersus and the way that they designed and described them are bad. It was a half-cooked idea. It did not have enough time in the oven. Barry, you don't have to say anything. It didn't have enough time in the oven. Changing the vernacular of how boss battles work inside of the boss battle setting works. Whenever you take and you play a card on the party's turn, instead of saying it's a form, I call it a maneuver. Big shout-outs to Sam. I call it a maneuver. And you have 3 things that you can do as a maneuver. You can play an ability as a form, you can play a card out of your hand, or you can pass as the maneuver. Those are the 3 things that you get to do as a UniVersus player. I'm just not calling them regular forms. I'm calling them maneuvers. That's the same idea. So when it translates over to the actual game, it's you can make that leap in logic, and it is good enough for you to go, oh, this apple and this cran apple are close enough that I've got it. It's close enough. I can figure it out.
So, if I can,
please.
I think fundamentally, you're making an argument that your boss battle is good for introducing players. The boss battles are not, and
sure.
I think that's my problem. Is right. We have actually 4 different versions of UniVersus that people play. You have the demo that you get when you're a new player.
Yep.
That's game 1. And then you split your game experience. You either go play boss battles, which are a different game than the demo, or you play standard UFS, but you're at a low power level or a casual power level. That's a fundamentally different game than even the demo. Yeah. It doesn't have half the card types.
Totally.
It's a fundamentally different game than boss battles, who have a different turn structure, a different mechanical structure, everything. And then you have competitive UniVersus that is not the same game as casual UniVersus in 90% of scenarios.
Sure.
So my problem is we're saying, hey, new players, go play boss battles. That's how you learn the game. But not really. That's not really how you're going to learn the game. Because you're not going to learn the back and forth of holding cards to build versus blocking versus what my opponent could do, because your opponent does very predictable things on a very predictable schedule and way more often than an opponent would get to.
I don't disagree with you. I'm saying I know that it is different, but like I'm going to use an example with a partnered game. I think the idea of what the Proving Grounds product, which is coming out for Riftbound in October, is a perfect way to get people into the game. Now, that one is different than what we're talking about, and I'm going to get to it in a second. That product is 4 pre-constructed decks in one box, and it is marketed as a board game experience. Because you can have board games where we work together cooperatively and we defeat a boss, or you can have board games where you're playing against the people at the table. This board game experience, the Proving Grounds, is you versus 3 other people at the table, 1v1v1v1, free for all. And you are playing pre-constructed decks, and they contain similar stuff, just with different leaders and different colored things. You don't get to change them. That's the board game experience. This is the board game. There's a winner every time. Who deserves? It's based off of strategy and decisions that you make. Awesome. That's great. Those same cards are legal for play in the competitive version of Riftbound, which is a very different game. It plays differently. There's less battlefields on the board. It's 1v1. You can also take the board game. You can do 2v2. There's a third way to play the game. Fast forward. Compare it to the PvE boxing battles. I wish we had like a board game version experience of UniVersus, and the board game was just, here's 4 challenger deck-esque things. You put it in a box, and it comes with X amount of bosses or whatever. And for your board game night, we all want to sit down and play UniVersus the board game. It uses mechanics that are adjacent to UniVersus the 1v1 experience. I understand that product doesn't exist, but that game, the board game of UniVersus playing against a boss, is fundamentally different than UniVersus of this game. But there are just enough connections to where the person who learned the board game experience can connect enough key points that matter in the 1v1 version to where they have a better head start than the person who didn't get to do that. Because the reality is, before boss battles existed, we had nothing else. We had nothing else. This is something. It ain't perfect. I get that it's not perfect. I think they're fun though, and the only reason why I have a lot of faith in them is because I've seen them work. I've gone to the Critical Role deck releases, and I had people I'd never seen in my entire life show up, and they go, "I don't know how to play this game." Granted, I held their hand. I'm a veteran player, and the reality is that's probably how most people learn our game, is that somebody holds their hand the entire time, because that's how what we want to do. But they learned the game by playing against this piece of cardboard on the table instead of against me. And then fast forward a month or two later, they knew more about the game than the person that I had been trying to demo and learn when I was teaching years before, not even years before, a year before, because I didn't have that tool. I'm not saying it's perfect. It's not perfect. It is a different game. It should be advertised as such, and it is because the rules are different. I think it's a good tool. It's a better tool than we've ever had. And that's why I think it's good. And that's why I would recommend it. That's why I would recommend it.
I mean, to truly answer your question, Zach, the answer is, I don't think there is a way to play the game that I recommend to new players.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think just to like a 51% answer, there just isn't a way to do it. Full stop. You've done success. There isn't one.
Sure.
That is not good for UniVersus. That is not good for personally me as a content creator, somebody who's trying to get more people into the game. That is not good in general. So I am doing what I can to make the boss battles a new player friendly experience, because I think that the idea of the boss battles is very good. It makes sense with the IP acquisition that we have. That like imagine it makes sense for the Star Trek Challenger decks to come out as a board game. I bought a board game product for $100. I get all 4 of the decks that are all legal. Half of the cards literally say the words like retaliation on them rather than rival attack. And half of the cards are playable inside of regular standard. Half of them are for boss battles, half of them are for not. And you literally just separate them, right? Like that's exactly what Barrett wants. I'm on the Cerritos. I've got 4 jobs that I have to do. Each job is specific for each player, and we all come together and we finish the mission. That sounds sick. That sounds really cool. It doesn't exist from the parent company, and so us as the players, we have to be the cockroaches of card games, and we have to figure out how to get people to jump into our game, and shoving them into the deep end of the pool of competitive play, going, hey, I've got $1,000 deck, and all I'm going to do is I'm just going to beat your ass. You're going to get some very masochistic players, and it's the reason we have 100 people in our game.
Yeah, I can agree with all that. I thought the Star Trek decks were going to roll out with some sort of improved cooperative experience because of how many characters were worded in a way that made them look like they were going to be a cooperative experience. And I get what you're saying around as a community project, making improvements to that experience and all of that. Yeah, I don't have any qualms with that. I just like, and I'm excited to. We're gonna play your boss battle in Louisville. I'm excited to do it.
It's so much better.
It
It's so
just-
much better.
It's just so it is. It's so weird to me because I from like a new player experience. I just didn't get it on how like how they even learned the game from a boss battle, given how different it is. Because and it may just be as an experienced player, I know what's different, and therefore it feels way different, and a new player might not necessarily know that.
I think
And,
that's,
and I,
think
don't
that's
disagree with that
fair.
sentiment because
Yeah.
I didn't get it either, and then I saw it work, and I went, "Well, this is weird," because I didn't have this becoming a UniVersus player. I didn't have this at all. I had some schmuck teaching me how to play in a card store, and I had to jam games against them just to figure out what the heck I was doing. And you're right, I didn't get it, and I saw it work, and I had more people show up to a locals than I ever had because they were down to sit down and play against a boss. And I went, I'm down. I'll crack open a cold one and I'll jam cards against a piece of cardboard on the table. And then you can take it a step further, right? And do things that even like Tim Friedlieb did with the content creators and stuff at Worlds or whatever. And like he like DM'd it, which was like cool, I guess, you know, and some people really enjoyed that. And you like take it a step further, right? And then obviously like what Tam is doing. So like I'm not saying it is apples and oranges, 100%. But it does work, and it's better than what we've ever had access to, because I don't disagree with you. Shoving them into the deep end and just having to play, like what you said, the comparison, the casual universes versus competitive universes, not the same thing as the demo experience, not even the same thing as challenger decks versus each other, 100%. But the boss battle is a better grease than something we've ever had before, even with how bare bones it is.
It is a half step forward that I am currently trying to put on my back and take the thing that Universe is a good idea that was not flushed out and making it better, right? And I think and there should be more people doing it. So I am not a fan of triple threat. That's not for me. I think that somebody should champion, hey, let's make triple threat really good, right? Let's change the rules enough to make triple threat really, really awesome. I will tweak how UniVersus is played ever so slightly in order to make triple threat happen.
It's like the same reason, it's like the same way Commander got started.
Correct.
It's because someone decided to take this idea and make it happen.
Yes.
In Star Wars Unlimited, it happened almost immediately when the game came out. Someone took it upon themselves to build upon this rule set. And if you do a good enough job, sometimes the company cares and they take it over, or they want to help.
Yeah.
So like, yeah,
Yeah,
I just think it's a start, right? I just think it's better than what we've had before, and that's only because I can say that because I've been playing the game for 10 years.
Yeah, makes sense.
So
Cool.
here's my pushback to you, Zach. Here's the next question. If not boss battles, what? As a recommendation for new players to play normal universes.
So, I think that's two different. There's some subtlety there, right? So, I think we all agreed that the Universe's boss battles are less good than the TAM boss battles. So, would TAM's effort or the community's effort be better spent trying to convince the company to even up the casual and competitive experience a little bit, get a little closer? Maybe they look kind of the same, and when you show up with a casual deck, you're not instantly destroyed by even a like up and coming player just with a competent deck or whatever. If you're asking me, how do you get new players to play the game? I think challenger decks are a good way to go, and Another good way to go is helping them build a deck by letting them borrow cards, showing them how to play, coaching them. I'm willing to accept your premise that boss battles are a better tool than we've had. That seems totally reasonable to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think my last note is I think it also really depends on who you're teaching, because sometimes what we found what we found out was sometimes you release 4 challenger decks of the product and somebody tells you, "Oh, this is all we do for board game night." And I go, "What do you mean?" And they go, "We just crack open the challenger decks when we play against each other and that's all we do." And I go, what do you mean? That doesn't make sense to me." And they go, "No, that's what my family does. We bought the decks, so we bought the Star Trek decks or whatever, so we could play them against each other. And one day I'll play this deck, and then one day my son will play a different deck, and then my wife will play this deck, and that's what we do. We do it for board game night." And I go, "Wow, that's really cool. You guys you
That
just
sounds
do it
kind
to
of
have
sick,
fun."
actually.
Yeah, and you're like, "Wow, that's just what you do to have fun." And they're like, "Yeah, we just play UniVersus for fun." And I go, "Wow, I wish more people did that." Or vice versa, in a similar idea, I wish we had a board game experience like the boss battles that are specifically demographed to be a different experience than the challenger deck experience, because they are different. And I think because one way of how someone is going to learn the game better is different than someone else's. And I think if there's just more ways to do it, aka a boss battle is just one more way to do it to ease the pathway, it is a lot different than the abrupt version, which is what you told us, because that's what we all did. Which is, yeah, I had someone hold my hand, and I borrowed cards from them, and I built a deck with them, and I jammed games with them, and like that's to us the only way to do it. And the reality is that's not true.
it was so. I'm gonna use the word heartbreaking, even though it's like a feels good story of Danny from the Coping with Cardboard channel. I think 3 weeks ago, after playing the game for like 2 years, won the locals, which is dope, which is so
Yeah.
cool. That's so awesome. And they were so excited about winning their locals that I went undefeated at my locals and I won. I finally won. I got a room full of killers and I won. It is easy for you to get the endorphins of playing UniVersus and getting the play patterns down, whether they are, if you squint your eyes and you look at it, with maneuvers instead of playing forms, and you have a party leader, and retaliations rather than an attack, and activations. You can still get those same neurons to fire in a boss battle and get the endorphins of "I won a game of UniVersus" versus a boss battle, rather than the I got the neurons from winning at my locals. And it is way easier to take somebody who is 2 weeks in and go, instead of playing hyper competitive sweaty games, let's all work together and play this. It is the reason. I looked up this stat. I will look it up again because I closed my window. The sales of Monster Hunter as a franchise versus the sales of Street Fighter as a franchise. Monster Hunter, a game that came out significantly later than Street Fighter, has sold 120 million units, while Street Fighter has only sold 56 million. Because people want to play collaboratively towards a common goal versus a 1v1 experience where I am testing myself. That is just the case.
I'm a prime example of this. If you've played MMOs, I hate PvP. I hate it. I absolutely detest it. I only play MMOs that are high PvE content. I want to work together with my friends, not against them. But yeah, you're right. I do like the question, though.
Yeah.
And I don't disagree with you, Zach. I wish more was done with them in general.
Yeah.
I wish more was done with them. I think there's a lot of space there, and I'm hoping that like things like Riftbound's Proving Grounds product pave the way on why it is a good idea.
So I want to circle back, and officially we're actually off stream. My
That's
stream
true.
died.
Your thing died.
Yeah. So YouTube frogs, VOD frogs, you get this. I think the biggest issue here is that There just isn't a new player friendly way to like play the game and design the game or whatever. I don't think starter decks are it. I don't think challenger decks are it. I don't think that sealed is it. And so like I get to do this thing and I get to make this thing that I'm passionate about. You said, is my effort better spent showing UniVersus the like this idea? I think the answer is no. And the reason is because I don't know how to get that company to that large company to move and change its ship in a direction that makes sense. And printing is difficult, and I have tried to show my boss battle to people on the design team, and they've looked at me and said, I'm not legally allowed to look at this. Because it is fan-made stuff. If we end up turning around and printing something similar, you could sue me. And I go, but I'm not going to. And they go, we don't care. You could. And so I literally can't do that. You know what I can do? I can't go show it to Sean O'Brien and say, hey, man, do you want to make these for your side event? Go host a buy-a-box where people spend $20 to go in and play. And if they beat the boss, which is hard, they go get a cool promo. You could lie. But the point is to play a fun experience. If we have somebody who goes 0-3 drop because this is the first time they've ever been to a regional, and hey, here's a new way to play the game, here's a new way, we're all going to work together to do it, I could potentially hook that person to come and play the game more. And I think that going for and pushing it for the company just isn't going to make sense. Also, they're not paying me for it. So like if they want to put me on, if the goal is that they like my boss battle and TamCardwell is the head of boss battle design and they give me a contract and a paycheck and insurance or whatever, sick. That sounds awesome. But for the time being, it's just for cool community use and it's a thing that I am passionate about.
Yeah. And I think it's really cool that you're passionate. I think it's really cool that you put it out. Mm-hmm. I think but the point I was trying to make is like the company has limited development time, right? There's only so many people working on a product. There's only so many people in design. Instead of spending their cycles on designing boss battles, could they not be spending cycles making casual UniVersus just better?
I mean, the
It's
short
not a
answer,
question any of us can answer, right? Like,
the short answer is yes. They every single day they should be working to make new player experiences better. The question is how do you effectively make that happen on the budget they have, on the timeline they have, at a quick enough pace, right? It is a tough cookie to crack for sure. It is difficult.
Yeah. Totally.
Yeah.
Thanks for the conversation, guys. I do have to run.
All good.
Oh, thank you for the question.
It was
the
great.
reason why we can do this.
Yeah. Appreciate it. We'll see you, buddy.
See you later.
Hi, Barrett. It's just me and you. Off stream. Just hanging out now.
Are you still recording at least?
I am still recording, so we are good. Everybody, thank you all for hanging out and watching the Tam and Barrett UniVersus Super Show. I do greatly appreciate it. It was fun. Obviously, if you wanted to see how this conversation ended, you're over here on youtube.com/TamCardwell. So drop me a sub if you haven't. Otherwise, if you have questions that you want for next week's show, come drop them. Join my Discord using the description down below. It is open a ticket in the Talk with Tam, Ask Tam a Question section of the Discord, and we would love to talk and chat with you. So that, Barrett, final thoughts.
No, I had fun. Second time, just as good as the first. Thank you, everybody. Again, we can't do it without you guys, so hope to see you again next week.
Bye, everybody.